everybody. Wayne Voles. Welcome back to our podcast channel. And got an interesting topic today we're going to talk about, only because I get this question a lot in talking with contractors about snow and ice management. And it's tailgate versus V-box spreaders. And I can honestly say that it's not wrong or right. Now, I know that's my opinion, and I do a lot of presentations talking to guys about snow and ice management, and sometimes it becomes a debate between guys in the room of, what tailgate's the dumbest thing in the world and a V-box spreader is the only way to go, and the tailgate guys are saying, tailgates are the best and V-boxes ain't worth a penny and blah, 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 blah. And we all have got our own personal opinion on that. But I would just like to kind of clear the air a little bit on why I think it's not right or wrong, but it's what works best for you. What works best for you? Because being a snow and ice management contractor myself, and I started with one truck, I can certainly see the benefits of utilizing tailgate spreaders as well as V-box spreaders. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. Matter of fact, even within our operation now, still we have a few tailgate spreaders that we run. They've got their application. Now if you're out there doing, large facilities, maybe a tailgate spreader doesn't make sense. But let's look at where a tailgate spreader does make pretty good sense. If you're a one truck operation or a two truck operation and you're doing, whether you're doing driveways or small commercial facilities, and you're working out of your home, let's say, a tailgate spreader makes really good sense. And why is that? I'll tell you why it made sense to me when I was working out of my home with it, is because at home, I didn't have a place to put bulk material. I couldn't have a triaxle load of ice melter brought to my house and dumped in the yard and scoop it into my V-box spreader. And I didn't live close enough to a bulk material supplier to make it make sense. Guys say, well, you don't have to get out in the snow. You don't have to load your V-box, like you do with the tailgate spreader. And you know what? I've loaded, I don't know how many 50-pound bags of ice melter into a tailgate spreader. I know it's a whole heck of a lot of them over the course of the years before we went to some bulk material and V-box spreaders. But what I do know is, let's just say you've got a half-ton truck or a three-quarter-ton truck, and if you're running a yard and a half or a 2-yard V-box spreader, that's what you can carry, right? And that's all you're going to carry. But if I'm using a tailgate spreader on my truck that holds, say, 600 pounds of material, I can easily get another whole pallet of material and almost a second pallet in the back of that truck. So I, as a tailgate spreader contractor, I can carry more material going out bagged, which is allowing me to stay out longer and service my accounts before I have to come back and get more material than, say, if I put a 1.5-yard V-box spreader in my truck, put a 1.5 yards of material in it, and then went out and spread it, then had to go back to a bulk supplier. So, and that's another topic. Another topic of conversation here. I'm going to touch on, well, right now we'll go to it then. But if I can stay out longer and service my properties faster because I'm not spending time driving across town to get bulk material and then getting in line behind other people that are getting loaded, then I know I'm paying more for the product. That's a big objection too. Guys say, well, you pay a lot more for a bag product than you're going to pay for bulk material. I get that. I understand that. So then it goes back to, well, what's the trade-off? Is the trade-off, okay, I'm paying a little more per pound for a bagged material, but if I'm servicing smaller properties, I can charge more if I'm not in that competition of larger properties, V-box spreaders, bulk salt, multiple tons at one location, and I'm going to go and do properties that are requiring 300 or 400 or 500 pounds, let's say, at a stop. And I know what we did with our company when we were all tailgate spreaders, and we still use it now when we know it's going to be serviced by a tailgate spreader route. We'll tell the customer, we know exactly how much product we're putting down on your property. You know, if your property calls based on a square footage for 350 pounds of material, we put 350 pounds of material in the hopper and spread it. We don't have a ton minimum or a half-ton minimum. You're buying what's applied. And we found the customers really do like that. They like the fact that, hey, we know what goes in the hopper. We know what comes out of the hopper. So those are some of the advantages you get with a tailgate spreader that makes sense for a contractor that's doing smaller properties. They can carry more product than they could with then just loading a V-box spreader and then having to go back and get in line. They are going to pay a little bit more for it, but we didn't have any problem selling it at a higher price based on the fact that, hey, we take less accounts, we're servicing your account faster, and we know exactly what's going down. And why is it important that you know the amount of material that's going down on a property? I'm not going to go too much into this, but there's one important thing we need to know, because it's in another talk we'll talk about later, but that's the need to measure the square footage of your properties. Because we need to know the square footage so we know how much material needs to be applied. So if we do get into a slip and fall situation, then if I put 200 pounds of sodium chloride down, or 200 pounds of magnesium chloride down, or 200 pounds of a blended product, whatever it was I used, I better know how much square feet I treated, how much product we used, what the temperature was, and when I returned back. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to have any liability in the event of a slip and fall. But what it does help with is that we use customary and industry standard procedures for square footage and material type used and temperature ranges. So that's just something else to think about calibration on equipment and how that can be a selling tool for you. Now, for a person as your company grows, or if your accounts are centered around a bulk supplier, then a V-box certainly does make sense. You know, and the larger your company gets, you know, like us here now, I mean, we've got multiple bins with bulk material in it, you know, and we run very tight routes. So now we're in a situation where, hey, V-box spreaders make sense. So there's advantages, disadvantages to both for sure. But, you know, V-box is nice. You load the hopper, you go out and you spread your material on a facility, and come back and fill up when you need to. It's all within your own home base. That in itself makes it nice. Now, the other side of the V-box spreader is you don't have your own material stored on site at your own location, so you can go somewhere. You got to go somewhere else. So that's where it gets into snow. And what's nice about snow is we don't need a whole lot of accounts, right? So we can key in on where we're routing, where we're scheduling our work. We can be more specific on a target area when it comes to snow. So if we know, hey, we're not working with bag material, we're using bulk material, and we got a supplier here and we got a supplier there, then we're going to put in each of those parts of town, we're going to want to try to keep our routes somewhere within our supply chain of material is. And there's other things that get into play as your company gets bigger, you know, as far as storing material on site and having a skid steer, whatnot on site, to where you can, you know, just load on site too. That'll be another talk. But just when you look at it from the standpoint of being a smaller contractor, you know, 1-2 truck operation, and you look at it from tailgate versus V-box, just ask yourself, you know, a couple questions. If I can carry more material in a tailgate spreader, not in the spreader itself, but in my truck with a tailgate spreader, then I can carry in, say, a 2-yard or a 1.5-yard V-box. It might make sense to pay a little more for the material, be able to carry more, and not have to spend your time during a snow event driving around in traffic trying to get to another bulk supplier for your V-Box spreader. And so just remember, it's not wrong or right, but a lot of suppliers will try to sell a V-Box to everybody when a V-Box isn't necessarily for everybody. You can be very, very profitable working with a tailgate spreader and bag material, blending the products right in that hopper too. In other words, when I say blend it, you can get a pallet of, say, halite or your sodium chloride and a pallet of magnesium chloride and blend that right in your hopper as you're filling your hopper up. You get a very good product, melts at a colder temperature, gives you refreeze protection, and you're going to be very profitable with it. And you can charge more for it because you're dealing with smaller properties. We get into V-Boxes, yeah, you're buying the material cheaper, but then you got to get in line, you got to deal with traffic, so there's some disadvantages of that too. The bottom line is, do what's best for you. Don't let somebody talk you into a tailgate or into a V-Box just because it's better for them, because there's money to be made with both of them. It's just different business models. Remember, profit is not a dirty word.